unexpected health crisis can throw people into a state of chaos, causing individuals and families to feel helpless, despite the good efforts and goodwill of healthcare professionals. In an hospital setting, there are usually many codes that are there to help make efficient decisions and respond properly and efficiently by the right team. One of them is code blue. Code blue or code pink is called when there is a medical emergency that has a potential to lead into a fatal outcome. Either someone suffers a cardiac arrest, someone stops breathing. In such cases, when a code blue is called, the medical team are set on their heels running, literally, to save life. It's a race against time because every second matters. In the meantime, the family can feel very helpless, hoping and praying for the best, while fearing the worst. Hello viewers, welcome to this episode of Ebenezer. Thank you for making this network and Ebenezer part of your weekly routines. I have invited back a couple, Pastors Philip and Karina. They joined us early this year in January, shared their story with us, their faith story and their ministry story. The plan was always that they would be back. I had hoped for them to come back within weeks, but a health crisis deferred those plans. We even had an episode ready to hear more about their ministry journey. They had just moved to a new city with plans of continuing the church plant in that city. So they were to come back and tell us more about how that ministry was going on, especially during the pandemic, how the church without walls was progressing when they suffered a medical emergency. One of them ended up admitted in the hospital. And today they'll come and tell us about it. They will tell us how they have continued, who and what has sustained them and helped them, what resources were in place in their most difficult health crisis journey. Little did they know that a health crisis was lurking at the door. And that is what happens. That's why we call it a health crisis. Sometimes people are born with or have some lingering chronic illnesses that every now and then they know that needs to be managed. But there are some illnesses that are very unexpected. You go to a doctor's appointment for a routine appointment and one thing leads to another, and before you know it, you have a difficult diagnosis to deal with, and there goes the treatment, procedure after procedure, and admission, and life in and out of the hospital like a revolving door. I work in a hospital and very familiar with situations that catch families and individuals off guard. That's why we have a system called the on-call response, responding to crisis situations for spiritual care and support, while the medical team is doing their best to address the illness, the situation, and help individuals in their recovery back to good health. In my book, Away from Home, I narrate a story about a time when my family, as newer immigrants, we had just been in the country about a year, suffered some medical crisis, health crisis. First, it was a week that we were going to a job interview. I was driving to Toronto from where we lived, about an hour and a half drive to Toronto for a job interview, when we stopped to put gas in the vehicle. And another vehicle that was leaving the gas station accidentally backed into our vehicle, pinning my husband between the two vehicles as he was just finishing to fill up the tank. causing an injury on his knee, one of his knees. He ended up admitted in the hospital. And the following week, while he was still down with that injury, recovering, my other daughter playing basketball fell down and broke his leg just below the knee. Ended up in another hospital. And for about 2 weeks, 2 members of the family were in 2 different hospitals in 2 different cities. Quite a crisis to respond to. By God's grace, they both recovered at their own different times, and there were no long-term lingering injuries, effects to their legs. Talking of health crisis, we also know that modern medicine has improved significantly, providing quality care to individuals in their time of need. In some countries, they have world-class healthcare systems, and we saw this put to test during the last 2 years of the pandemic. How medical practitioners, scientists, researchers, public health leaders rallied together to find a cure, to find a vaccine, to fight back COVID-19. And as much as there were some devastations, there were some casualties of COVID-19, and there are still some lingering effects of COVID-19. We also know that there was so much goodwill and much effort put into any gains and any recoveries that were experienced in the last 2 years. I recall at one time, while we were in the early years in Canada, I had lived in Canada for almost 7 years, in around 2007, and was decrying the fact that at the time I could not afford a trip home. I was living from hand to mouth, working in the factory, and other members of the family were students. I was saddened that I couldn't make a trip home as frequent as I'd have liked. I remember sharing with a friend as we were driving to a family camp, saying that if I would have a chance to just visit my parents, just go and visit them while they're alive, given that they're in their aging years, and any time is bonus time. Visit with them while they're alive. Should something happen and one of them dies and I'm unable to go, I will still feel good, feel okay. But if I didn't make it to see them alive and then something happens, one of them dies, then I get called and I do everything I can to go bury one of them, I wouldn't really be happy with that. By God's grace, He opened that door, and in 2010, I made a visit. That was 2010, and 12 years later, still around, going strong. Definitely decline at his age, 96, but still around, and we thank God for that. I want to bring in Pastors Philip and Pastor Karina to share their story with us. Story of surviving a difficult illness. I will see you on the other side of the conversation. Ebenezer. Welcome back, viewers. How I have a treat for you. I mentioned that we had a plan for Pastors Philip and Pastor Karina to be back and continue with the conversation about church plant, about mission, about where the Lord was now leading them in this new city. The plan was to be back in the month of January. God had other plans. God had other plans, and now it's in May. By the time you'll be seeing this conversation, it will be the first week of June. 6 months. We had a plan, God had a plan, and now I welcome my brother and sister, fellow laborers in the vineyard of God, Pastor Philip, Pastor Karina. Welcome, and you may have to reintroduce yourselves.
Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Philip Omondi. I am originally from Kenya, East Africa.
Yeah, my name is Karina Omondi, and I'm also originally from Kenya in East Africa.
Yeah.
And may I just ask a recap of your faith journey? Just a recap. You told us about your faith journey in January, and many of us remember. Someone may be here today watching this conversation and didn't watch the first one. So a recap will help.
Yeah, so I came to faith in the year 1993 through a close friend of mine. I think the closest friend I had at that season, in that season of my life. His name is George. So when I came into relationship with Jesus in 93, I was in Kenya for about 2 years, really dedicated, walking with Jesus. And then I went for further studies in India from 95. And I stayed there for 9 years before I came back to Kenya. During that time, we managed to plant a church in India, came back to Kenya in 2004, and married Karina in 2005. And then in 2007, went back to India and stayed in India till 2017. So around 22 years of my life in India doing church planting. And also a family man, love my wife and love my kids. And then from India in 2017, we went to Uganda, stayed for 1 year, 6 months. And then in 2019, we came to Canada. So since we came to Canada, it's been now 3 years. 2 of those years were spent in Toronto, in Scarborough. And then we moved over to London, Ontario.
Indeed, you're an Afro-Indian boy. I can see that. Karina.
Amen. Yeah, so similar, interesting. We didn't even know each other, but I came to the Lord in the same year, 1993, and that was in school. And it was just, I'd gone for one of the school prayer meetings. And during that prayer meeting, I'd never been to a prayer meeting before, interestingly, despite being a Christian for so long. So I went to the prayer meeting, and it was very funny. I was laughing the first part of it. But the next thing I knew, I was on the ground crying and weeping before the Lord and repenting of all my sins. And that's how I came to the Lord. And ever since 1993, I have seen the goodness and the faithfulness of God. And just like Philip went to India, he went before me, but in 1998, I went to India also for my studies, and that's where we met. And initially we were just friends. Then one thing led to another, and
we were in the same college, studying law. Studying law in the same college, and we were in the same Christian Students Fellowship.
Yeah, so I was his junior. So one thing led to another, and here we are today. And so
friendship is a good foundation to lay into a relationship. So I thank God that it started as friendship. And by the way, you mentioned that you were married in 2005.
Yes.
By 2005, I had my first grandson.
Oh,
yes, I'm old.
Okay.
And
much respect to you.
I call you my baby brother, baby sister, but you can also qualify as my children.
Yeah, that's true. Where we come from, we should not even be talking where you are,
Thank you.
But by the grace of God.
You are here. We had the recording in December, but it was aired in January. In December, we had the recording. Little did we know what was awaiting at your door. Pick up from there. Tell us what the weeks that followed the last time you were on Ebenezer.
Yeah, so I'll let Karina do the talking for this.
Yeah, so the weeks that followed at Ebenezer, I did mention it a little that during that recording that we had the first time, I was not really sleeping. I had a pain on my shoulder and on my neck. And I thought it was just something maybe
on the right side.
On the right side. I thought it was just an injury, maybe because of, at that time we had just started going to the gym. So I thought something happened and I'd injured myself. But as the weeks progressed, it came from a shoulder pain, and then I started throwing up constantly, like anything at all, like water, anything there's nothing that would stay down in my system. So because of that, we went to the doctors, and the doctors did their tests, and
We went to the physio.
We went to the physiotherapist
Because she thought it was
first.
just something physical.
Yeah. So the
It makes sense.
the physiotherapist connected us to a doctor because he says that he needed an X-ray, and the X-ray can only be done at a doctor's place. So we went to a doctor's clinic, and at the clinic, the doctor actually looked at me and said, "Let's leave this X-ray first. You seem to be having something else that's going on," because he looked at me physically and he could just tell that nothing was going on. I mean, he said, "You're not fine."
Yeah.
Wow.
So he told me lie down in his clinic, and he started pressing my stomach and doing a few of his other tests. And immediately he said, "I'm sending you to the emergency room."
Wow.
Yeah, so he sent me to the emergency room, and quickly we rushed to a hospital here in London called Victoria Hospital. And from there, they started doing different scans, different tests. And the next thing we knew, they were giving us a cancer diagnosis.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very hard for us to accept. Actually, the first time when they tried telling me about the cancer diagnosis, I told them, stop, because I was alone.
Yeah.
I had sent back my husband at home because, I mean, we all know that most of us know the emergency room, how long it takes.
Yeah.
So I told them, wait, first call my husband because I don't understand what you're saying. Because it came from a shoulder pain, neck pain. Now you're telling me about cancer.
Yeah.
They're talking about a tumor so large, and it's lodged between her heart, her lungs, and her, is it liver or kidney?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I couldn't take it. I couldn't bear it. And for a long time, both of us actually were like, we had the diagnosis, we had what the doctor says, but we're behaving like it's somebody else who's suffering from it.
I think the whole community, we were in denial.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When the words came out, we were like, no, someone missed something. They just have to do it again.
Yeah. So they confirmed the tests again and again, and for sure it was cancer. And I think also, in the midst of it all, we spoke to the lead doctor, the hematologist, and he told us this cancer is very aggressive. So the kind of cancer that he told us about it's called Burkitt's lymphoma.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a kind of cancer that affects the white blood cells. So he told us this kind of cancer is very aggressive. So the sooner you start the treatment, the better.
Chemotherapy.
So, chemotherapy. And the only option we had was chemotherapy because of where the tumor was. So there was no option of a surgery, and there was no option of any other radiation treatment or anything. So only chemotherapy would be able to work in this situation. But I think he told us that the cancer is aggressive, but it entered in one ear and went out through the other one.
Yeah.
Because we were still in that denial kind of stage.
Yeah.
But really, in the next few weeks, we started seeing that truly the cancer was aggressive because my stomach started becoming bigger.
In just 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks, things just went from.
Yeah.
It's like things just went downwards.
Yeah. I couldn't eat in the meantime. Everything I would eat still, I was throwing up, despite them having given me some antibiotics and other meds that were supposed to keep the food down. Even to the extent of even the nausea meds, I was throwing those up. So it was really, really bad. So by the time we went to the hospital, actually things were really, really bad. In fact, I was taken to hospital by an emergency vehicle.
Yeah.
From one hospital to another
hospital. Yeah.
Yeah. So by the time we reached there, all I remember is that the doctors, because I kept slipping into unconsciousness. But every time I remember seeing a doctor, the only thing I remember them telling me is, "You're very ill."
Wow.
So even at that point, I don't think the words really sunk in very well.
But it's almost like sometimes they're reluctant to say it like that. You're very ill. But at that point, they really wanted to They really wanted to lay it out there, but I can still imagine that still, for you, it's like a maze.
Yes.
But they knew what they were seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of them just kept on saying that. And now later, this I'm saying because I discovered it later. It's only later that I realized actually how sick I really was when they called Philip in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Philip can go on just a
Yes, so she got admitted to the hospital on 2nd of February
Mm-hmm.
at about, it was about 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I had intended to take her to that hospital, but they told me, no, we have to use an ambulance.
Yeah.
So they told me to go home and wait for a phone call. The phone call never came till 9 p.m. That's when I actually wanted to go to that hospital to check whether she had been transferred from the smaller hospital to this big hospital.
Yeah.
But just before I could go, Karina actually managed to call me using the hospital phone.
One of the times I was conscious now.
Yeah.
Yeah, she called me and told me, Philip, I was transferred from this hospital to this one. I'm doing well. Just do me a favor, because I know they will not allow you to come inside. Bring a phone and a charger. So in that way, we can be in touch through the video calls. So I was very happy. I quickly rushed to the hospital with Karina's phone and charger. And the nurses took those things to her. But then on my way home, I received a phone call from the hospital, and the doctor introduced himself and said, your wife has become very seriously ill. And I asked him, 1 second, I spoke to her about 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
He said, she's almost like she's gone into a coma and we're taking her to the ICU. Please stay near your phone. So I was still in denial. I thought maybe they just want to give her better medical care, because I asked him, why ICU? And he said, in ICU, we have better medical care than any other part of the hospital.
Equipment as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to bed. I just said, I just told the Lord, yeah, you're in charge, Lord. Let me sleep. But I kept my phone very close. At 3 a.m., that dreaded phone call came. And these were the words. Are you Philip Omondi? I said, yeah. I just knew it was emergency.
Yeah.
And he asked me, how far do you stay from Victoria Hospital? I said, about 15 minutes drive. He said, come quickly.
Wow.
Your wife is about to die.
Wow.
Please come. And I asked him, what do you mean my wife is about to die? He said, I'm so sorry, sir. Let's not argue over the phone. Please rush, because by the time you arrive, she may not even be here.
Wow.
And it was one of those nights they had the advisory. The Environment Canada had put out an advisory for freezing rain.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
I don't even know how I drove the car to the hospital.
Yeah, those are the moments where the footsteps, the angel just took over.
Exactly. When I parked the car and walked from the parking to the hospital entrance, that's when I realized, oh boy, it's freezing rain, because I was speeding, you know? So I quickly got into the ICU, and for sure, Karina was almost gone. And these are the words of the doctor. He told me, sir, your wife is about to die any minute right now. So just sit beside her, hold her hand, and talk to her. Let her die in peace.
Oh.
And I could not understand what this man was saying.
And because that is it's almost like there's not enough time to process all this. All this is happening at a rate that it's a little fast. You have not processed the new diagnosis. And now it's like you have skipped some steps. Something is happening here.
Yes.
But by God's grace, to hear those words, my brother Philip, I cannot tell you that I can even understand what's going through you at that time.
Yeah.
You're driving to the hospital, and it's tough for a doctor to drop those words on the phone. They will tell you, come right now. It's important. They will not mention what's happening. I work in the hospital as spiritual care practitioner. When there is a crisis, they will call a chaplain, a spiritual care practitioner, say, we want you to be nearby. You're calling family. Things have deteriorated very fast. They want the team to be prepared because the family is coming. The family doesn't know. But in this case, they already dropped that bombshell to you.
Yeah, he did. He did. He did. I think
that means it was serious.
Yeah, it was very, very serious. He wanted me to come there as soon as possible. And all I could do was just weep.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a group that had started praying for Karina on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I just sent a quick line before the lights turned. I just wrote, pray for Karina. I knew they were going to get it because they were already praying. So if they get this few words, pray for Karina, they would know something is wrong.
Yeah.
And for sure, they got the message. So they started, people started calling, hey, Philip, pray for Karina. What do you mean pray for Karina? We're already praying. I said, guys, Karina is almost dying. Pray. That's all I could say.
Yeah.
So friends started calling in through video. And I remember the doctor told me she can hear.
Yeah.
So one by one, they would pray and I would put them on video and put it on Karina's ear.
Yeah.
They would pray. So the doctor told me a few minutes she'll be gone. And he told me the tumor is so large, it has completely enveloped her heart. And so
now we want to come back there, Philip. We want to come back there. We are running out of this time, and I want us to pick up from there. Navigating the system during pandemic, children at home. That's where we want to pick up.
Right.
We want to pick up in our next episode. Thank you for introducing this topic, this testimony, and let's pick up immediately in the next episode. More importantly, let's hold that in our minds, our hearts, how God carried you with this news and brought you to this place where now we are talking.
Amen.
I will see you again. I want to talk to you again. I'll see you again in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.